Hello and welcome to Citizens Forum. This is being filmed on Wednesday, September the 3rd. In the Memorial Arena in Victoria, I want to thank our volunteer crew and the Shaw staff that makes it all happen. The first part of Citizens Forum is always the Walter and Jack Show. And Walter, what are we going to talk about first?
Well, we've always been kind of examining issues around how the provincial government works. You know, how do these ministries work? How do they make decisions? Who sets the agenda and how that all gets played out? And, you know, we're more or less in agreement that there seems to be a model of government, sort of a hidden government that seems to happen where you have corporate agenda is always there. But how does the corporations get their agenda inserted into government and creating legislation? Now, it appears to me that, you know, you have massive corporations worldwide that have interests in British Columbia, mining, forestry, fisheries, what have you. You know, these major industries, these are global industries.
Housing.
Housing. But, you know, they have interests here. So they tend to use public relations firms to create the language for policies and programs and initiatives and even legislation. They even write legislation, the wording for legislation. They bring that to the deputy ministers, who are pretty well always there. The ministers, like the Minister of the Environment or Minister of Education or whatever, they come and go at the whim of the Premier, but the deputy ministers tend to stay there for 10, 15 years or longer. And so the model that I'm thinking we should be concerned about is that corporate agenda, using massive public relations firms to bring policies and stuff to different ministries in the government, and then manipulating the events to the point where it becomes legislation.
I'll give an example. Years ago, I was involved in forestry issues, and I mean, it was common knowledge that this is, you know, I'm going back 20 years, but the Forest Act, the BC Forest Act, had been written prior to that. And my recollection of the story I was told about that from many different sources was that the logging companies, the clear-cut logging companies who ran this province 25, 30 years ago, they had an industry group called the Council of Forest Industries. And somebody who was a vice president of the Council of Forest Industries working for the logging companies was brought into government at the deputy minister position. And under his tutelage, the BC Forest Act was written to basically give the companies everything they wanted. The Forest Act was then passed into law by our pathetic politicians. And then this gentleman went back to the Council of Forest Industries as a vice president or president of it. So, and that's the way, you know, that's how our governments are worked against us. That's one example.
Yeah.
There's 1,000, no doubt.
And there's like a revolving door, and you see that happen federally too. And, you know, with a little bit of Googling, you know, to see who these deputy ministers are, you know, because the teachers are on strike, and we know Minister Fassbender is the Minister of Education, but who is the deputy minister? The fellow's name is Rob Wood. He's been there for about 10 years or more, and in his bio, he was a corporate executive for TELUS. Now, I'm not saying, Jack, that he's bringing, you know, doing TELUS's bidding in the government. I'm just saying this is where he came from. And, you know, and one of the big issues that, for me and many people in this province, is the use of wireless technology in classrooms. And who is one of the major service providers of wireless technology? TELUS. So we're looking at a conflict of interest here. It's obvious that there's a conflict of interest here. And these are the sort of things that are troubling. Is that
even bigger than that is the fact that a corporate executive comes in as the Deputy Minister of Education. I mean, shouldn't it be, I mean, or wouldn't it be somebody from an education background, or somebody who believes in public education or something, anything like that? But to bring in a corporate executive, and you said he's been the deputy minister there for 10 years?
Yeah, I have to check the dates on that, but I think it was 2001, so it's longer than in 10 years. Just before the advent of the wireless technology, you know, the tsunami of the technology being just brought on and basically forced into schools, and with really serious detrimental health effects in my view. And these are well known worldwide. But these are the sort of things that rob us of our democracy. I mean, at some point you just throw up your hands and say, what the heck, why even try to participate in this system? I don't advocate for that. I think we still get a chance to create democracy in this country, but we have to realize that these are the sort of conflicts of interest that we have to weed out of the system. We have to have a lot more control of how these deputy ministers and all these ministries are run. You know, John Ralston Saul wrote a book regarding how governments operate. In it, he outlined most of his ideas in The Unconscious Civilization, where he does look at how governments are shaped and formed. And one of the biggest roadblocks of democracy is the bureaucracy within governments that are basically untouchable.
Yeah. We see that happen here with sewage treatment and the Blue Bridge. I mean, the senior staff for both the City of Victoria and the CRD, you know, they seem to have an agenda that's not the agenda of the people of this city, and they have tremendous power to manipulate our city councils. It's crazy. So we're talking about, you know, public education. I just wanted to say something about what's going on right now. You and I were talking about it earlier over coffee, and I was thinking one of the biggest problems is that within the public, certainly including myself, nobody ever gets access to any facts. So for example, the question of, you know, the government side is always teachers are greedy, teachers are asking too much. But shouldn't we know how teachers are doing in terms of their wages over the last 10 or 15 or 20 years? So if we go back 10 years or 5 years or 15 or 20 years, I mean, you can see how much teachers were making then, and you can see what the rate of inflation is, and you can see, I mean, have teachers been doing exceptionally well? Are our teachers overpaid? You know, I've heard the number 225 million coughed up a lot over this, what's happening with public education. It seems that's, if we had that extra 225 million a year, we could, but who's got 225 million a year for schools? We just don't have it. Well, the Royal Bank just made a profit of 2.4 billion. That's 10 times as much over the last 3 months. So in the last 3 months, one bank has made a profit 10 times as much as what it would cost, supposedly, to bring harmony to our public schools. And yeah, there's 10 provinces, so we can take 1/10 of it, right? And this is only 3 months of their profit for one stupid bank. Forget the oil industry, forget the mining industry, forget the retail industry, forget the developers, forget the banker. One bank in 3 months made enough of a profit to solve the education problem in this, and it's never mentioned.
No.
The media won't mention it, the government won't mention it, the teachers union won't mention it, the entire union movement in BC won't mention it, the NDP won't mention it. Why? Why is everybody afraid to say that the corporations are stealing everything that isn't tied down, and that's why we don't have enough money for public education?
Well, I think perhaps, let's say, for a politician to bring that up a little too often might be political suicide for them, including the NDP, the leaders of the NDP.
But why?
Well, because, you know, the corporate media will attack them and they just won't get anywhere. So they seem to have a reason. I question that. I also question, you know, there is a certain concept of what's right or wrong. You know, there are some things that are just plain wrong, and we all should have values, but what we think should just never happen, and that seems to be really lacking in the decision making now. It's all compromise. It's all, others might say that's all sellout, and we're to a point right now where in my view, the NDP is sold out. And we have just, we just have the Liberal government with this regime and this program that's ruthless and brutal and really dismantling civil society in BC. You have an NDP that sort of criticizes, but not really making a lot of noises, because they know themselves had they become government, probably wouldn't have been much better off. And of course, the other entity is the Greens, which, in social policy are somewhere off in the right with the Liberals. So we don't just simply have nobody at all right now, Jack, except for the teachers themselves and the teachers union, and our government is targeting them because they know this is a real opposition to their agenda. This is an articulate group of people that have an analysis and know what's really happening on the ground. And I think the bottom line is the government has to smash that union. And that's what's going on.
Yeah, it's a strange state of affairs in our province and in our country. There's games being played that we Canadians know nothing about.
Yeah.
And we just don't matter. And it's because we have no democracy.
Yeah.
I mean, if we had some democracy in this country, then the government's role would be to make sure that people have fairly good understanding of any issue, which means facts and figures, as well as different points of view. And you'd have a media that gave us that information, and then people would make decisions about everything. And what we wanted, is now, I don't think, I mean, here in BC right now with public education, give people the facts and figures, find out what people want, and then that's the government's job, is just to do it. The government, Jim Sinclair, one of the big union leaders in BC, was on CKNW a couple of days ago. And, the hostess or host was asking some questions. And one thing she said was, well, there's no money for public education. There's a deficit, or there's no money in the bank, right? And he went, yeah, there's no money in the bank, and went on to the next thing. I mean, why doesn't Jim Sinclair mention that the reason there's no money in the bank is that this Liberal government since 2001 has brought in tax cuts that are now costing the province close to $7 billion a year. And with the biggest cuts going to the richest people and biggest corporations in the province. So that's where the money has gone. We're taking money from public education and healthcare and social services and everything else, taking care of our society. Instead, we're giving it to the 1% of the 1%. And nobody will say that. It's just bizarre.
Well, it looks very suspicious, doesn't it? And it's a very sad thing when you think about these union leaders are not bringing this up. The shortage of money, Jack, is it's not like, oh, you just can't make this money. It's a political decision to give corporations tax breaks and then make the workers pick up the slack and pay the burden and try to maintain the society. This is our political decisions, and I really think that the upper echelons of the union movement, I wonder about them. Can I accuse them of corruption? But I really wonder about what's going on.
Well, I'm a member of the BCGEU. I ran for a vice presidency there about, I think, 4 or 5 years ago at a convention. I found out later that the convention at which I wasn't elected a vice president of the BCGEU was run in complete violation of the BCGEU's bylaws and constitution. So here is a meeting paid for by the membership of the BCGEU, held at the Bayshore Inn in Vancouver. We all did very well, thank you very much to the membership. But it was held in complete violation of the BCGEU's bylaw, which says that the delegates have to be elected. And the meeting I was at, and I'm sure many other meetings, nobody was elected. Delegates were selected by who knows who.
Yeah.
That's how and there's nothing you can do about it. There's no public oversight of the unions. And I think there's no public oversight of the unions because they want the union movement to be completely undemocratic. If you can't shine a bright light of truth and honesty on it, you're going to get the completely undemocratic people who run the unions now.
You know, there's a lot of great people in the union movement, and there's a lot of very democratic things that happen, and there's a problem there with the leadership, no doubt about it. But there's a lot of rank and file people that are honest, and unionism is a necessity in our society.
I agree 100%. I'm fighting for unions.
I know.
Yeah.
So we don't want to be misunderstood, let's say, that everybody has to clean up their act here, and the union members should be demanding more from their leadership. Simple as that.
Yeah. And from our political leadership, we should demand rules and regulations so that there is some public oversight of the unions.
Yeah.
So if a major union in this province holds its elections in violation of its constitution, I went to the Ombudsman's office. Well, I don't think they oversee unions. And finally, I went to the Labor Relations Board, and the lady I spoke to, this was years ago, was kind of interested, and she looked into it, and she said, well, you should contact your union. That's where you got to make your complaint to him. Really? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, ISIS.
Okay.
So, I just can't and don't believe it anymore. I've believed my whole life. I've been a believer. You know, I got lied into wars from the time I was 5 or 6 years old. Canada was always, the United States was always at war, always fighting for truth and honesty and justice and liberty and all of those great things. Well, now we're at ISIS, which is the greatest threat ever, more than Al-Qaeda, more than Osama bin Laden, and I just don't believe it anymore. I mean, I don't know what's happening there. I just do not believe. What I believe is the United States funds and built and created ISIS for its own agenda, whatever that is, and that agenda seems to be to completely destroy democracy within the United States.
Yeah.
I mean, they are putting in place, a lawyer called it years ago, a new Nazi Germany. And
yeah. Well, you know, Noam Chomsky's always a good guy to refer to on American foreign policy in the Middle East, and you know, he would look at that and say, well, this is a policy of destabilization, and all these things have happened in all these different countries in Africa and in the Middle East and in Libya and in Egypt and the Arab Spring was all a destabilization program to destabilize governments. It doesn't really matter what happens as long as they're not stable. They can't be democratic. They can't run their own affairs. They're dependent upon foreign aid. They're dependent, and get foreign aid, you have to allow a certain amount of influence in government and from the West, and the name of the game is destabilization. ISIS is just one of those cases where when I just saw the name, I'm going like, wow, that's a kind of convenient name. It really has a ring to it in the West, doesn't it? And these guys stumble across the desert and they find all these weapons, and now they come on, I couldn't buy it. It's like a public relations army. You know, it looks like an invention. And, oh, by the way, Obama was saying today that it's going to take a long time to get rid of them. You know, it's not as easy as you think. So destabilization is the name of the game there.
And they may be getting ready to destabilize us. ISIS may attack Canada or the United States or Britain, right?
Yeah.
ISIS may attack Canada or the United States or Britain. Can you believe it? Can you not believe it? Who's doing it? Who knows what? You just don't know anymore. That's the point, I guess. I just don't believe any of it anymore. And I mean,
well, the message is to be critical. Everybody should be thinking outside the box, and basically always question everything that they're reading, and you always should be checking your facts, and should always be looking for new sources, and you know, there are good sources of information that you can tap into, and eventually I think you can get to the truth.
They talked about, they were thinking about putting these closed-circuit television cameras up in Abbotsford. right, for public safety, right? And I heard on the radio, I think it was CKNW, they did a poll in Abbotsford, I think it was Abbotsford, and 70% of people wanted them in, right? And I thought, well, yeah, that's exactly what they do. First, they create the poverty, and they create the crime, and they make sure the police do not clean it up. You don't clean it up. You allow the criminals to remain on the streets. You destabilize the community. Then you put in the cameras that it was your plan to put in all along, and the people want them because they don't feel safe anymore. And the crooks who run this country are behind the whole thing.
Yeah, and it's you know, George Orwell, you know, was writing about this back in the 40s, and you know, he could see it all coming down the line to manipulate the public to the point where they actually ask for the things that are going to oppress them. And the sad thing is, for me, is my need for privacy goes beyond just a whim or wouldn't it be nice. I view privacy as a fundamental ingredient in my being a full human being and a happy human being. I have nothing to hide, but I do have a need for privacy, to know that I can act and be my own person. And the sad thing is that a lot of people have lost that value, you know, and to me that's very troubling, that they don't know or they don't understand just how important it is for them to retain their privacy.
We're almost out of time. The amalgamation thing is moving ahead. Be careful with it. CFAX is pushing it. I don't trust CFAX on that issue. Walter, thank you very much.
Always a pleasure, Jack.
And thanks for watching this segment of Citizens Forum. Welcome back. This is the second segment of Citizens Forum, and we're going to be interviewing Kathleen Arneson. And Kathleen is the person behind the World Children's Summit on Peace and Nature. I'll say it again, the World Children's Summit on Peace and Nature. It's scheduled to be here in Victoria in the summer of 2015-ish?
Yeah, spring, May 19th to the 22nd, 2015.
Okay. It sounds like a wonderful name. So why don't you start by telling us a bit about you and your background, and we'll go into the summit after that. Okay,
I think that, you know, this is something that came very naturally for me to do. I'm a Canadian best-selling children's author. So working with children and storytelling and being in that realm of imagination and creativity is just something that has been with me my whole life. And I guess probably if I took a test, maybe I'd be down in that age group that we're bringing together for the summit, which is 10 to 14, an age group that really hasn't been worked with a lot. But sort of what happened was I moved to Victoria from Manitoba thinking I would have no problem getting a job here. And it became, my RSPs just went like that because it just wasn't happening. And I thought, well, I guess I have to go back to Manitoba. And then the day before I was packing everything to go, a friend who I'd met here said, well, I can give you a job. And I went, oh, this is wonderful. It's like one of those things you hear people talk about. So here I am 9 years later. And within that first year, I started working in a gallery and creating this amazing community with all these wonderfully creative people. And I had a dream. And in my dream, I saw this beautiful fountain made of stones, and it could come apart, and I kept hearing this dream message, if you want world peace, you must begin with the children. Well, in truth, I'd been brought up in a small town, and community was what we had been taught, that if you weren't part of, you know, the solution, you were the problem, you know, basically, and that you dealt with solutions. You didn't look at life through, this is a problem. You said, okay, this is happening, so what could be the solution to what's happening? You don't like that story, write a new story. So I phoned a friend of mine. I said, this is what I saw. Can you draw it for me? Can you create a design and make it strong enough so I can take it across this country and tell children about personal peace? And yes, they can change the world. Because if I asked you, what could you do to change the world, Jack? You'd be going, like, maybe join this group or that group, or this is what I'm really, very passionate about. But if you say to a child, what does peace mean to you? And they think it's the absence of war. And if you say, how are you going to change the world? You're 10 years old. So they kind of look at you like, are you nuts? How do you expect me to change the world? But that was the message. I crossed Canada. I went to schools in the morning with this fountain. The boys always built the fountain. The girls always took it down. And I spoke with 10,000 Canadian early middle year school children. I asked them, what does peace mean to you? Where do you go or what do you do that helps make you feel peaceful? Shifting that so I didn't lead them in the research. And close your eyes and describe for me the kind of world you want to live in. And I videotaped 400 of those interviews. And when I went back as a researcher and started looking at the answers, I saw that 80% of those children naturally went to nature to feel peaceful. They went for a walk. They sat under a tree. They took their dog for a walk. They went into the woods. They went walking on the beach. They listened to waves if they lived near an ocean or a lake. And then when they closed their eyes and described the kind of world they wanted to live in, they all saw the color green, every single one of them, 100%. They saw people's smiles on their faces. They saw people recycling, which I thought that was so interesting. And they saw flowers, they saw rainbows. Not all of them did, but for the most part, that was the kind of world they wanted to live in. Then a thread started to happen, which I wasn't prepared to hear. And they said, and we feel safe. And I went, oh my gosh, that means they don't feel safe in this world. So it became a question I wish had been part of the research I was doing, but it didn't end up into it, other than that I made note that this is a question I'd like to ask at some point in time. The other 20% of the children read a book, did a sport, danced, played music, listened to music, or spent time with their family. Incredible, things that this is what they naturally did to calm themselves down and feel at peace. So I came home after I was in Nova Scotia and looked back and thought, what have you done? You have to drive now right across this country to get back to where you came from. And what are you going to do with all this? And when I came home, I realized I can't just stop here. This has been a 7-year journey. It's gone from a dream to a vision to a purpose. And if somebody had said to me 9 years ago, are you going to be spending most of your time in life trying to talk to people about personal peace and care for children and make sure that there's a place where they can be nurtured and their voices heard and that we listen to them because they're bloody smart. They're smarter than most of us, even though I think we all thought we were pretty smart when we were kids, right? So I think that when I came back, that was when the World Children's Summit on Peace and Nature was hatched. But I didn't want it to be about me. I didn't want my ideas to be what drove or became the foundation of doing something that created a platform for children to learn or become stronger in something that they already believed in. So we took everything they said and we developed a workshop with David Bouchard, who is like one of Canada's storytelling authors. He's like a diamond in this country. He's so brilliant.
I've never heard of him, of course.
He's in our backyard, yeah. and he's known throughout the world. And then we have, I think you've heard of this guy, Robert Bateman, who is one of our keynote speakers. And when I spoke with Robert, he went, oh my gosh, I can so invest my time in what you're doing because I see the value in it. I see that what you've created is something that's going to help these kids slow their lives down, bring some control over their lives. And Frances Littman, who's a photographer here in Victoria, world-renowned, she's doing a workshop that'll help the children connect and create what is their lens of nature? How do they see nature? How do they see themselves in nature? And we're excited about that because we want to build this huge eye. The iris becomes the images that the children have seen that are special for them.
Well, you know, so it's called the World Children's Summit on Peace and Nature, but when I read that, I thought peace meaning the absence of war or that, but it doesn't mean that. It means to be peaceful within yourself.
You got it.
Which is so important.
And there, where do you go? Like if I said to you, Jack, what is it you do? Not what do you have that makes you happy, but if you're really upset, what do you do to go to calm yourself down? Like where do you go? What do you do that helps you calm yourself down?
You know, I'm lucky that I do have, there's, for me, 3 or 4 places in the city where you can almost get away from the city, and 1 or 2 of them are quite natural. And I'm lucky that I've been able to spend a fair bit of time in all of them over the last few years. And, you know, it lets you step away from the crazy society we've built here, and you step into a world where, even though it's small, it's where nature still prevails. You see the difference in speed. Everything is slow, and you see just everything fits and it works and it's beautiful and it's magnificent and it's pleasant and it's tranquil and it's peaceful. And then, you know, you come out of it back into our world and you think we've gone too far. We've got to get back. I mean, you know, we can't be living in a creek, but where we are is just, it's inhuman, it's industrial. We can't survive in the world we've created.
We've disconnected.
Yeah.
And we've helped our children disconnect to it. This is what they do naturally. I think as human beings, this is what we do naturally. I do it. You just shared with me that you do it. You go to nature to feel peaceful. I go for a walk. I go to Beacon Hill Park, or I go somewhere where I don't have phones ringing in my ear. I don't have, there's no television on. All I hear is the water. Yeah. And we have the very first labyrinth, Peace, Nature, Labyrinth. Labyrinths have been around forever and ever. And now we have one that is being built specifically for the summit. And you can go, normally there's one way into a labyrinth and one way out. I'm actually somebody who hates rules. So I can even break labyrinth rules. But it was done for the children. You can come in through the root of the tree, up into the tree, you come into the heart, you go out, and you can go out through the crown of the tree into the sky. And this labyrinth is a place where you can actually walk slowly, think of an issue, think of just somebody you love, or an animal, or a friend, or anything you want to think about, and you walk with it. You walk with that thought until finally that thought just has no power over you anymore, other than unless it's growing something that's really happy inside of you. But if it's troubling, it actually dissipates as you walk.
Where is this place?
It goes away. And there's many of them all over Victoria, labyrinth work. So we're excited to be able to teach. Renee Lindstrom is doing wonderful work with contemplative movement. And we're sharing this with the kids. And they'll go home with, cameras. They'll go home with a ukulele. Oh, music. The kids go and play music. They write music, they play music. So we are teaching them to play the ukulele. And Victoria has this fabulous ukulele community, and they're going to take a ukulele home with them. So if there's 5 kids that come from a school, they take home a ukulele band. They take, what goes back to that school is this group of children that have learned something, that are tools, easy, simple to teach. They can take it to their families, to their community, to their classroom. And every single one of these things you do are things that you would naturally do to feel at peace. So the whole idea of peace in nature, it goes hand in hand. Even, you want to throw the economy into here? You've got a peaceful country, then you've got a country, its economy is really doing well because you're not afraid to go to the store.
And you know, not only that, but it should be an economy where people don't have to work too hard
Right.
in order to live a good life. And nobody should be too rich and nobody should be too poor.
No.
So we've got quite a few questions here. Where and when? I think it's in Victoria, 2015, in the spring of 2015. Who can go, or can anyone go?
Anybody can come, they can register, 10 to 14 years of age. We have 200 positions for 100 for Vancouver Island and Victoria, 100 positions for the mainland of BC, then 140 for across Canada. So we're hoping for, at the very least, 10 representatives from every single province so that we can grow this. And this is the birthplace of a 10-year peace-building vision for Canada. So it's a biannual event, but this is the only place, I mean, I guess it could be, but I want to believe that it's the kind of people that live in this province, on the island, in this community of Victoria, that truly know what it means to be connected to nature. That when I moved here, it was like, I looked at this city and the people in it, and I thought, these people know how to live. They're out there, they're exercising, they're in life, they are engaged. And when I wanted to do this, I thought, this needs to be in a community where people are already engaged and that they care. They care about their environment, they care about what they eat, they care about where the food comes from, they care about their children, they care about their education.
Yeah, you know, you're right. There's a lot of people in this community who care about all of those things. And we never really hear about them, even though these are the most important things. What we do hear about is if somebody hits somebody over the head with a baseball bat, the media tends to chooses to tell us that instead, which is too bad.
People don't come to Victoria to retire. They come to Victoria to live.
Yeah.
I love that I see these people and they have this youthful aging that happens with them. So to me, that's their inner child that's coming out.
We got 2 minutes left.
Oh.
Do you need volunteers?
I need volunteers, and we need donations to make this happen. And you know, Island Parent, they were one of the first people that came on board, and it really is important that to believe and invest in people. Invest in the kids, invest in people that want to support and help people be their best, because everybody has so much to offer. And so we need our community. We need our community partners to come on board and become sponsors of this event that's going to be at the University of Victoria.
How can community get involved?
Well, they can come to our website at worldchildrensummit.com. They can make a donation, they can become a sponsor, they can volunteer, they can spread the word. Hemp and Company came on board. They're going to take care of all the t-shirts for us.
Oh.
And I mean, hemp, it's just beautiful. Does it not go with nature? Oh, there you go. So, you know, we really appreciate Bill and Lorna to be there for us. And yeah, it's pretty exciting. And you can read more about it in Island Parent this September. And there'll be more articles coming out.
We're out of time.
People like you, Jag, thank you.
Well, we both know who we
much.
should be thanking for this interview. I won't mention her name, but thank you, C. And thank you, and thanks for watching this segment of Citizens Forum. The children, what's the name?
World Children's Summit on Peace and Nature.
The World Children's Summit on Peace
And Nature.
Thank you.
I'm so happy here dancing with you. Let's dance together and see what we can do to make a new world, to make a new world, to make a new world, to make a new world. Dance, dance, dance upon the earth. Dance upon the earth. Dance upon the earth. I'm so happy here dancing with you. Let's dance together and see what we can do to make a new world, to make a new
Hello and welcome to the last segment of Citizens Forum, being filmed on Wednesday, September the 3rd. I'd like to thank again the Shaw staff and our volunteer crew that makes it all happen. We got to get a picture of everybody so we can, or maybe not. Our guest in this segment is Amber Isles, and Amber is the person behind?
Yes.
Is it called Rock Coast?
Rock Coast.
Rock Coast. And your business is on the Saanich Peninsula?
Yep.
And she makes, these aren't chocolates, these are like
English
toffees.
toffee.
English toffees. And also starting to move into some chocolates.
Yep.
And
Ice cream bars.
Ice cream bars, okay.
Yeah, and other candies, hard candies.
Now what I like about this is the ingredients are good.
Yes.
Yeah, and for me that's important. I think we all need candy and snacks and stuff like that, but it should be as healthy as possible.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the main point. Is I love my sweets, and you can't expect people not to eat sweets. So if I can keep it all natural and as organic and local as I possibly can, then at least it's better than just, you know, finding one with lots of fillers and additives. So.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's
Yeah.
really important.
And
So
people feel better about giving their kids it too, and themselves. So.
yeah. How about where can people pick up Rock Coast stuff?
I just finished my main markets for the summer, so now going into winter, I do some of the markets, which are all listed on the website. I also have a really nice map on the website at rockcoast.ca, and it lists all of the stores around town that carry my products. There's about 25 down in Victoria, so hopefully I'll start expanding out of Victoria soon, but right now there's quite a few of the local markets and great little stores that we have and coffee shops that carry it. So yeah, if you're...
So like my business isn't chocolate, my business is more like I'm interested, my volunteer business is like news. And I know in the news business, a very important thing is distribution.
Yes.
And our side, you know, this not the corporate side, but our side of the news business, the side of truth and honor and justice, we have a big problem with distribution. How about you? Is distribution difficult? I'm
sort of at the turning point right now where I'm growing to the size where I really need to start thinking about distribution. This is the next big thing on my list, and something that I'm not familiar with. So this is a hard one for me because I have the cooking background, and that's good, but building a business from scratch and learning all the little points to go from there is really hard. So now, because I produce it and do my deliveries, you know, I'm really limited on time doing all the labeling and packaging and that sort of thing. So I'm trying to reach out to distributors. Problem is with an all-natural product as well, your shelf life becomes less than with a lot of the products that have fillers and additives in them. So I really struggle with shelf life, trying to keep it so that I can get on the shelves, because with distributors, the amount of time that they have to deliver it, you got to think about that. So I want to get it as fresh as I can to the customer that's buying it. But so that's sort of the avenue that I'm going. I have a couple local great distributors that I've been talking to. So that's sort of the next one. But then the thing is too is I'm a bit worried that it might grow quickly to somewhere where I can't produce the quality product that I'm used to doing. So I have to be careful that I'm ready to go that route before I go ahead and do it, and make sure that I'm ready for it. So
what's the shelf life of?
Shelf life is 4 months on the toffee.
Okay, well that seems fairly long.
Yeah, I've worked really hard over the last 2 years to try and work with different packaging and things to get it to where I can. I mean, ideally I'd like people to eat it right away, but it's definitely...
And what happens, so let's say this goes into Fairway or something, or 50s, and there's some left after 4 months. Do you take it back? Is that how the deal works, or?
Generally, I don't have much that goes expired, and usually my turnover rate is month. So usually the stores, I have a really good client base in Victoria that knows where to get my stuff. They go back to the same stores and pick it up, you know, sort of every couple weeks, which is great. And so generally I don't have that problem. If for some reason some of the, because I'm just starting out as well, I really want to keep all of the people that have supported me happy. So if I find that, you know, maybe some of the dates didn't get circled properly and some of them is coming expired, you know, I've gone and switched it out for them, because I mean all these local businesses are the ones that have supported me from the start.
So you're a small business person?
Yes.
An entrepreneur, dare we
I
say
guess so.
it? Yeah. So how do you make it? Like, is it done in a kitchen, or do you have a little something a bit bigger than a family kitchen to work in?
It's a bit bigger than a family kitchen. It's not huge. I work in a kitchen that I got built a year and a half ago, I guess it was. It's only about 500 square feet, so I really do a lot with that little amount of space. But it's a bit tight quarters, but yeah, I do everything from manufacturing to delivery, so I make it all there. I do have an amazing mom who comes over and helps me.
But is it just you? You're doing
It's just me, yeah. So that's the next step as well, is I'm sort of at max capacity for myself. I work a lot of hours, because when I finish in the kitchen, I generally then move on to website, social media, and packaging.
Would you say, just so we know how small businesses work, is your business earning you an income that can keep you going?
Right now, I would say I'm at the point where I'm doing really well. However, because I'm growing, I'm buying a lot of new equipment. So basically everything that I'm making, I save up and I get a new piece of equipment. And so I have this cycle, like I'm going through new packaging right now. I've rebranded my website, I've rebranded my logo. And packaging, believe it or not, is one of my biggest expenses and one of the hardest things to do. So even though I have the recipe down, it's still, the packaging is a huge part, and branding, because if it doesn't look appealing, then you're not going to be able to sell it, even if it tastes great.
Well, you know what? It's kind of a very simple package, but
yeah.
it's nice.
Yeah, I've simplified it a lot.
What is it? Do you know?
The plastic is a cellophane polypropylene mix.
So it has an interesting feel to it.
Just nice and clear so that you can see it properly. But
so it's, you know, do you have a machine that puts stuff into packages, or are you doing it by hand? Right, okay.
I know. I went to a big baking conference down in Vegas last October, and I was blown away at how big this was. Like, we went through one of the rooms, and you know, probably about 4 hours went through there. Didn't find everyone on the list that I was looking for, that I had gone down there to see, because it basically was every single baking company throughout the world comes every 3 years to this huge conference in Vegas. And because this is all new to me, this is all people that have been in the industry for 25 years. So if I have the chance to talk to people from Italy who have been making chocolate equipment for, you know, 50 years, we took the advantage and went down there. But after about 4 hours walking down, we said, I haven't found these people on the list. Do you know where they are? He goes, oh, you haven't gone over to the industrial side. And I said, industrial side? Walked over there, and I just, oh my gosh, it was double the size of what we had just gone through. So what we thought was going to be, you know, a day of conference and then enjoying 3 other days in Vegas turned into 8 hours a day, 4 days of.
So is there stuff available that would do things for a company your size that's made for small companies?
That was what it was. It was all these packaging, but not for my size, probably once I get a little bit bigger. Right now, this is sort of my only option until I get employees, I guess, and then you move into getting other helpers to help you do the packaging portion of it, which is honestly equally as time consuming as the production too. And then once you get bigger, then you can start investing in these machines that convey it. And so we got to see how they all work, but I don't think I'll be there for a while. Plus
yeah, maybe it's best to never go there. Who
exactly,
knows? Who
you
knows?
know, like there's something to be said for still that artisan feel of keeping it the way that it is. So
when did you start this company, and how did you happen to get into this this particular business?
I started this just coming up on 3 years this winter, and actually couldn't tell you really how I got into it, because this is completely not in, well, that's not true, because I've always been into the restaurant side, loved food, so always been interested in that, have worked in restaurants for over 15 years now, but I also love animals, and so I went, worked through restaurants, put myself through university, got my certificate as an animal health technologist, and then worked doing that for quite a number of years, but still on the side sort of kept doing the restaurant just because I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the people as well. And this was something that I always made at Christmas, and always would have people that would come over and, you know, eat my whole containers of it that I put out. And so somebody says, you know, you should try that at a market one day. And I went there and did a 2-day market and sold out of everything. Yeah. So I thought, okay, so I tried another one, and then got approached by a local business to put it in. And once you sort of switch over to, that was a big sort of turning point, is once you decide to put it into a store where you're no longer the primary person selling it, it really changes your labeling and you know, commercial kitchen, things like that. So that was a big thing that I had to decide, is whether.
Oh, so you mean once you start putting it into a store, you have to meet a set of rules that you
exactly.
didn't have? Okay.
Yeah, it's a huge pivot point. And so that was a thing where I had to sort of sit back and say, okay, where do I want to go? And what had also happened during this time is with my veterinary work, I had gone down to South America and done 2 volunteer projects there. So I went backpacking down there with a friend of mine, and we went to a wildlife rescue organization and volunteered time there. And then I also went to a little fishing village in northern Peru and did a spay and neuter clinic. And so this woman runs spay and neuter clinics. We went into all the local towns and also educated the children on the importance of, you know, vaccinating and deworming and defleeing their pets, and just tried, because it's hard for them, you know, they're struggling to put food on the table for their children, so we can't sort of expect that they would look at the way that we look at animals and you know, spend copious amounts of money on them and things like that. And so, but you know, they're so responsive to being open about all the things that we were trying to teach them. And so when I came back, I sort of looked at the veterinary field here, and I sort of thought, you know, I really want to concentrate on the population control, because you know, you see what we see when we go out here, but in so many other parts of the world, it's just unbelievable the amount of injured and sick animals that are just roaming the streets. You know, like every day when I would go for a walk in Peru, I would see these dogs that had clearly had broken legs for years, but they had just healed, and they were so stoic about it, and you know, all they wanted was to just go out and get their meals for the day. And you know, we can't save every single animal like that, but we can work really hard towards minimizing the population of all of these animals by education and by going down and doing the spaying and neutering clinics. So,
and this whole business ties into that whole idea.
Exactly, because unfortunately the veterinary industry, as a lot of people sort of see how expensive veterinary bills are, but unfortunately it's not a big money maker. So I knew that doing the job that I'm doing and being certified as a veterinary technician, I never was going to get ahead enough to really concentrate on all of the things that I want to do down the road. And you know, funding a lot of projects with spay and neutering for like bringing vets with me, and whether or not we concentrate on just like really small areas at a time, or research for alternatives for spaying and neutering, because it's so invasive as well. And that's what I found is when you go down, you only have these animals for such a short amount of time. So you're doing surgery on them and you're returning them, and you're just hoping that, you know, the recovery is okay. So with a non-surgical alternative, which maybe hopefully down the road, you know, I could do some research on something like that. And so this, I'm hoping, because I absolutely love the food side and I love the animal side, that I can combine the two completely different things and build this business up, because honestly it is my passion and I spend so much time on it, to the point where I can make a living doing it, but yet I can still, in my spare fun time, go and do these other things that make me feel so good. So that's the goal long term with where I'm heading with it. And yeah, so
it's like the dream of a lot of people, to be able to have enough money
Exactly.
one way to do what you really want to do in the other.
Yeah. So that's the plan. That's what we're working towards. But in the long term, but still, I'm so particular about not losing this product that, you know, the whole means behind the product is to produce such high quality, good local ingredients, and as healthy as I can make the sweets that people enjoy. And, you know, people sort of say, well, where are you going to go with this business? You know, you can get somebody to produce it. And I said, well, I would never do that, because to me, the whole basis of my business is providing such a high quality product. So, you know, if I can get cheaper ingredients somewhere, I'm not going to, because I want the good quality local ingredients, and you're supporting all of your locals and they're supporting you. So I try and get a lot of my ingredients locally sourced and organic, and never anything artificial. No, and that's the struggle that I have is I don't use artificial flavors or colors. So with my new candies, trying to source out all natural flavors, colors, no gelatin.
Amber, I'm afraid we're out of time.
Oh.
I'm sorry. You know, it's something a lot of us have had as a dream, to start a small business, and especially making chocolate. Thanks so much for telling
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for watching Citizens Forum.